The latest sales figures for electric vehicles are out and they show that less than 4% of new car sales were EVs, but they're up 65% on 2021 numbers. Advocates for electric vehicles say the demand is there, but it's hard to convince car companies to ship their EVs here. Here's Dr. Jake Whitehead, who's the head of policy at the Electric Vehicle Council. Hi there, Jake. So take-up is growing, but it's still a small part of overall car sales, isn't it?
Yeah, look, the good news out of this report, Ros, is that we are seeing an increase in electric vehicle sales. It's heading in the right direction. But unfortunately, it's just not at the pace we need to see in order for all Australian households to get access to an electric vehicle and, importantly, for us to hit our emission reduction targets.
Right. So if the demand is there, then, Jake, why aren't car makers exporting their electric vehicles here to Australia?
Yeah, the number one policy setting that's missing in Australia is a fuel efficiency standard. So if you look at comparable right-hand drive markets like the UK, they're now sitting at about 20% of all new cars being electric vehicles. The key difference between the UK and Australia, they have a fuel efficiency standard and we don't. And without that policy, there isn't really that strong pull for car makers around the world to prioritise our market for these vehicles. And as a result, we're at the back of the queue.
The government, though, is seeking submissions for its national electric vehicle strategy, which is likely to result, it's said, in a fuel efficiency standard. So if Australia made it mandatory for car manufacturers to bring in a minimum number of green vehicles, what would sales numbers be then? What would be the uptake?
Yeah, I think the exciting thing is that we do have this opportunity through the National Electric Vehicle Strategy that the federal government is currently taking input on to introduce an ambitious fuel efficiency standard. And if we can get that in place in the near future, in the next 12 to 18 months, even before that policy comes into effect, we'll see car manufacturers starting to shift supply and increase supply to our market. And quite quickly, I think, in the next 5 to 6 years, it is feasible for Australia to catch up to some of those markets, but only if we act now to bring in place a fuel efficiency standard.
Well, the obstacles to electric vehicles sales, they've always been, haven't they? The number and accessibility of charging points and also the distance cars can travel on a single charge. Have there been improvements on either or both of those points?
Yeah, so certainly when we look across the world at the current state of technology, now you're seeing the average electric vehicle having a driving range between 400 and 600 kilometres. So for many Australian households and also businesses, that's more than sufficient. Additionally, we are seeing charging infrastructure across the country continue to be built out. That's increased this year compared to last year. We still have some way to go, but with, again, the right policy settings in place, we can have a charging network that covers a significant part of the country and ensures that, every 70 to 100 kilometres, we have a charging infrastructure facility available for when people do take those longer trips.
All right. What's happening on price?
So price has fallen. I mean, there are some challenges with the global supply chain right now, particularly, with the war in Ukraine and other economic pressures. There have been some issues around inflation leading to, I would say, a less aggressive reduction in vehicle prices. But importantly, in other markets that, again, have a fuel efficiency standard, they are seeing those more affordable electric vehicle models being delivered. And so there is still great opportunity for us through this policy setting to have affordable electric vehicles come into the country. And I would say, again, in the next 5 to 6 years, be in a situation where there are electric vehicles at the same cost as a petrol or diesel equivalent. But even more importantly, instead of having to pay, $2 per litre on fuel that we're wholly dependent on importing from overseas, with electric vehicles, you're paying the equivalent of 20 to 30 cents per litre using 100% Australian-made energy to power our transport system.
Jake Whitehead, thank you.
Great to be with you.